Hi, everybody. My name is Jessie Shields, and I'll be the moderator for today's webinar. I'm going to go ahead and keep everybody on mute, and we'll get started in a few more minutes while we wait for everybody to join. All right, we can go ahead and get started. Again, my name is Jessie Shields, and I am going to be the moderator for today's webinar series. Just a few housekeeping items. Everybody is on mute during this presentation. So if you do have any questions or comments that you want to make, please feel free to chime in along the way. There's up in the attendee chat box, you can throw them in there, or there's a place to enter your questions, and I'll kind of be watching for those throughout the presentation, and we'll get those answered for you. Other than that, I will go ahead and introduce Vicki Vermeer, and she will be presenting today's standards for you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm glad you could join us for this webinar about 5th grade economics and personal finance standards. This is my final one of this series, and we have one more for high school personal finance standards that's coming up later next week, next Tuesday. And so just glad you could join us. I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. We have 6 standards today, and I want to make sure that we can hit each of them. So we'll jump right into the first one, 5.13. Describe how goods and services are produced and distributed domestically and globally. So here, distribution is the piece that's been added. The students have learned goods and services previously. They've learned production and consumption previously, but now they're talking about distribution. And so in the fruit pile there, that is a link to a lesson plan. It's called Where Do You Come From? And it talks about different kinds of fruits grown all over the world and how those fruits get to the United States. Then the How to Make a Cherry Pie and See the USA. It's a cute story. A little girl wants to make a cherry pie, and she has to go get the ingredients for it. And so she travels all over the United States getting everything from sand to make a glass pie plate, to flour, to the cherries, all different things that she needs for her pie, and it includes a pie recipe. So that too is just interesting. She uses a number of different modes of transportation in that story. The distribution of goods and services on the far right, that's actually a curriculum. Usually we try to only give free resources in these webinars, but this is an actual book, a curriculum that, and I put the price in there, it's $26, that specifically talks about distribution of goods and services. And so since it fits so perfectly, I thought I'd include it just in case somebody would be interested in that. And then the logistics management one is a poster about basically how goods get to us, a distribution chart, sort of. And in the notes section, you will be getting a copy of this PowerPoint if you've registered for the webinar. You'll get a copy of the recording as well. So everything that I'm saying, as well as the PowerPoint, and the PowerPoint is fully linked. So everything I'm talking about is linked to the pictures that you see on each slide. One other teaching idea we had was to have students learn about production, distribution, and consumption by bringing in different household items and then working in groups to consider what services were needed to produce the good, as well as what type of producer made the good, and then consider where the goods came from, maybe map it out, or draw on maps, draw the trade route, that sort of thing. One lesson plan that I was looking at also suggested dividing the class into teams and having them meet with different school personnel. One group could go with the school secretary, one with the janitor, etc., maybe the music teacher or something like that, and talk to them about goods and services that they need for their jobs and find out where they come from, how they're made, that sort of thing. So just some fun ideas, getting the kids up and moving. The next standard, 5.14, explain how various levels of government use taxes to pay for the goods and services they provide. Previously, students have learned in younger grades about the fact that governments provide goods and services. This lesson gets more specifically into the taxes, which can seem daunting, but there are actually a number of really good resources out there. So starting in the top left corner with the word taxes, this would be a great place to start. It doesn't dive too deep into the subject of taxes, but it is a lesson plan that explains what taxes are, who pays taxes, why we pay them, what the money is used for, and how the money is collected. So it's actually a government website, usa.gov, and just tackles the whole thing in a very child-friendly way. The tic-tac-toe game board there is a beginner guide to taxes as well. It's a lesson plan from Econ EdLink, and it specifically addresses what goods and services are paid for by taxes. And it contrasts those with goods and services paid for by businesses, which is another just tweaking it a little bit, but helps kids get a little different idea of how money is spent in a community. The post office sign. Similar content to the two previous lessons, but geared toward a younger group. So if your fifth graders struggle with the concept, or if you want to start with a lesson that's a little easier for them to grasp, this would be a place to start. It's written for third through fifth graders, and so some fifth graders may find it a little too simplistic and a little too young. The April 15 calendar page, that's a lesson from Scholastic, and it digs into why April 15 is tax day and why we all have to pay taxes on that day. It includes, like good scholastic things do, worksheets, puzzles, games, and links to other helpful sites. And then the IRS logo there is a lesson plan from the IRS about taxes. And this, like the post office one was a little bit young, this one might be a little bit old, but it goes into more detail, includes things like fact sheets, assessments, PowerPoint slides, worksheets, goes into a lot more detail than any of the previous lessons, and could be a good follow-up or supplement to some of the easier ones. So it just depends on where your kids are at and how deep you want to go into it. The IRS lesson includes not only the hows of taxes, but also the whys, and has 4 different themes, including a lesson on history and a lesson on fairness in taxes. So just some really good resources there for teaching taxes. Going on to 5.15, explain how trade impacts relationships between countries. And trade is a big deal. We hear about trade in the news a lot. And it's kind of fun too to get maps out and talk about different countries. This would tie in very easily into a geometry lesson. Whatever country or area of the world you're studying, it would be very easy to tie in the goods and services that are exchanged with that country. Almost every country in the world trades with us for something. And so the shoe symbol on the left, that's a lesson on globalization, which will help the students better understand why we trade, what we trade, and some of the benefits and downsides to trading. And ties into the book called The Story of a Shoe by John Ryan and Alan Durning. So a little bit of a literature tie in there as well. The lunch bag is a link to another lesson plan. It's actually more of a simulation than a lesson plan. Students learn by participating in a simulated world economy, and they experience the pros and cons of trading, and they actually trade with each other. And then the teacher can help them extend the pros and cons to the macro level as countries rather than individuals. How do countries benefit, and what is the downside for countries that trade? Then we go to the global trade map on the top right. This is a video that talks about trade and demonstrates that people in countries trade with one another so they can have access to more goods and services, potentially at a lower price and better quality. It's an Econ EdLink video, very short, but would be a great introduction to a lesson on trade. And then finally, an extension activity on the bottom right corner, the signs pointing all over the world there. This is how currency and money helps facilitate trade. And so obviously, if you can trade like they did in the beginning of time, bartering goods for goods, but currency actually makes the process easier. And that's what this lesson gets at, is that money or currency helps facilitate that whole trade process. Might be some math tie-in there, depending on what subjects you're covering in math. So those are the 3 economic standards. Then there are 3 personal finance or financial literacy standards. And as we jump into those, I wanted to alert you to a brand new resource that the Iowa State University Extension has developed for kindergarten through 5th grade. They have put together lesson plans for each grade specific to the standards. So this is a one-stop place where you can get everything you need to teach all of the financial literacy standards. So it's all free. All you would have to do is go to the website linked in the green ISU Extension store there. Scroll down to 5th grade, click download, and everything you need is right there, right in your hands. So I wanted to highlight that first. In case that is not what you were looking for, or you want something in addition to that, we also have resources here for 5th grade. 5.16, demonstrate ways to monitor how money is spent and saved. Again, students have learned previously about money, spending, and saving. In this standard, they're being asked to demonstrate it, which is an activity, something active. It could be as simple as printing up a bank ledger like the one on the left and having them track expenses and income and allocating different amounts for savings. They could do this as a take-home activity to work on with their parents, or they could do it through a story that you read. There are a number of ways to tie that in. Again, good math tie-in depending on what your math lessons involve. So for my rows and piles of coins in the bottom left corner there, this is actually part of the ISU extension plan, and it's a lesson plan based on this book, Little Boy Who Saves Money. Gabriel is also from ISU extension. Gabriel gets a great deal, and so you can see they do often like we do and tie in literature and good stories with it. We've added 2 stories, A Chair for My Mother. In this one, the furniture was lost, I believe, in a home fire, and the girl and her mother are saving to buy a new chair. And so keeping track of the money that comes into the household and keeping track of how much they've saved, how much the chair is going to cost, and kind of walks through incremental stages that way. One Hen looks like a children's book, but has more advanced concepts in it. It's about a boy who gets a hen. He lives in Ghana, and how that hen and the eggs that the hen lays provide extra nutrition and income for the family, and how they can sell the extra eggs, save that money, eventually buy more hens. And over the course of his lifetime, the boy actually impacts the entire community from starting with just the one hen and the few eggs. And so it's a great story. One Hen has their own website and has activities linked to that as well. And Econ EdLink has a lesson plan tied to it, which is linked on the picture of the book on this PowerPoint slide. So going on to the next, whoops, too many. 5.17, give examples of financial risks that individuals and households face. We started here by just listing some of the financial risks, some things that can endanger the financial stability of a family. And so those are listed on the top left there. Then we put lesson plans in here for different stories that illustrate some of those risks and dangers. In Beatrice's Goat on the top right, Beatrice's family has underemployment and they were undereducated. And because of that, their income suffered and they faced some potential health risks. And the story goes into how one goat helped change that situation, that risk for her family. In Pepe the Lamplighter, Pepe's family is faced with death and then illness and finally immigration. And some of their family values and cultural values are challenged as Pepe eventually steps up to help provide funds for his family. And it talks about how he finds joy and satisfaction in the job that he has. And then Uncle Willie in the Soup Kitchen. This is one that the ISU extension has in their lesson plans. And addresses two different risks that families may face: hunger and homelessness. And it does it respectfully, and it does it from a child's perspective. So a good read to have in the classroom there. Going on to 5.18. Investigate ways that personal information is fraudulently obtained. Again, this is one of those topics that's hard to get at with kids, but younger and younger kids are getting on the computer and getting into situations where they need to know what's important and how to handle themselves. And so we have linked several lessons here. The thief is it's actually one of the Kahoots. If you've never played Kahoot games in the classroom, I think you're going to love them. Fifth graders should have a lot of fun with Kahoots. Each student needs a personal device, a computer, a tablet, a phone, something that they can log into the internet. The teacher starts the process and puts a screen up on the board and shows a login number. When the students log into that number, they are then registered to play the game. Each student plays individually, but the results are tabulated at the end so the teacher can keep track of which student answered which questions correctly. It's a great way to either introduce a topic or as an assessment at the end. And I play a lot of Kahoots with students, and all the way through high school and even into college, they love doing the Kahoots. So the thief one would be a good way to introduce ways that thieves steal identity, different ways that they have access to your information. The word Kahoot is linked to two other middle school Kahoots that you could actually use for teaching the concepts. They are designed for middle schoolers, but I think most fifth graders will probably be savvy enough to pick up on those concepts. And this is just an introduction. The students will get other personal information, instruction as they go through middle school and high school as well, but this is a good place to introduce it. The SPY is linked to many videos on tons and tons of topics of different types of fraud, different ways that thieves can get your personal information. Some of the topics include why care about identity theft, 5 ways to help to protect your identity, hang up on the phone fraud, sharing information from a day in your life. Just different, tons of them. There's probably 3 or 4 dozen different videos, and they're all very short, very good ways to introduce a topic or to add on to a topic that you're teaching. In Goldilocks and in Jack and the Beanstalk, each of those have a lesson plan attached to them. They talk about how to create safe passwords, why a password is important, how to prevent scams on your computer, just raising awareness for kids about different things people do to try and get your personal information and then use it against you. Those lessons are both Econ EdLink lessons, and they are appropriate for at a 5th grade level. Now, I've been talking a lot about Econ EdLink, and I forgot to introduce that at the beginning. Econ EdLink is a searchable website that is produced by the Council for Economic Education, our parent company, and contains hundreds of lesson plans on so many different topics. So if there's another topic you're looking for that I haven't mentioned or that I haven't linked in this PowerPoint, please feel free to go to that website, econedlink.org, and just search to your heart's content for other lesson plans. The website has recently been revamped, and so the links should all be active, and the lesson plans have all been revised and updated, so I think you'll find some good information there as well. Okay, so that's the end of the standards for 5th grade. Just want to point out one other resource for you. We have a monthly newsletter that we publish. It comes out once a month during the academic year. We don't publish June, July, or August, but when it comes out, it has 2 or 3 resources for elementary grades, 2 or 3 for middle school, and 2 or 3 for high school. And then at the bottom, there's something just for teachers, personal development or professional development link or helpful hints or something just for the teacher. So we try to keep these newsletters full of resources that are very practical, free, and helpful for the teachers. They're short newsletters because we know teachers don't have a lot of time. It will take you minutes to scan through it and a few more minutes to click a few links and see if the resource is going to be valuable for you. So if you're interested in receiving that newsletter, simply send me an email, just vicki.vermeer@dordt.edu, and just let me know, yes, please send me the newsletter. And our May newsletter is going to be going out in the next day or two, and so you can still get in on that one. Okay, that is the end of my formal presentation. We have a couple minutes left and just wonder if anybody has any questions or comments that we can take at this time. And again, if you came in late, I just want to reiterate that by registering for this webinar, you will get a copy of the PowerPoint as well as a copy of the recording, all the audio. So get both of those, and there are no copyrights on any of this. We would love it if you would share it with other teachers that you know of. We have recordings for all of the grades from kindergarten through 5th grade. I have done those. We also have all the middle school economic standards and all the middle school personal finance standards, which we'd love to send to you. And as I previously mentioned, the high school personal finance standards will be next Tuesday at 3:30. And we simply want the information to get out there, so we don't mind. We actually encourage you to share it as much as possible. And we're always here to answer your questions. Well, I want to thank Jesse and I want to thank Kyle Osborne, both from TS Institute and the Iowa Council for Economic Education. We work as partners to develop these webinars and to produce materials and resources for you to help you teach economics and personal finance more effectively. I am Vicki Vermeer from the Dordt College Center for Economic Education, and together we just want to help you in any way we can. So please feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions or comments for us.
All right. Thank you, Vicki.
You bet. Thanks, Jesse. We hope you guys all